So NFL 2K was actually coming back, and if you've been around my channel for a while, you know I've been reporting on this for years. It was going to be a real licensed NFL game, real teams, players, everything. And now it's gone. It's canceled. And the crazy part is this didn't just fail randomly. There's really a main specific reason why this was almost doomed from the start, but we still had hope that we would finally get 2K returning to the NFL market. About 6 years ago, they had announced that they were back in business with the NFL to make arcade style games, but still there was a lot of potential here because arcade games are still a lot of fun, and we were really excited to see somebody else put something on the market that could maybe challenge EA and Madden, even if it wasn't a simulation game. It was still going to be nice to see 2K back making a major NFL title, and depending on the success of that series, who knows what could have came. Maybe the NFL would have opened the license. But as I said, that's canceled, and once you hear it, you'll kind of understand why we might not see another NFL 2K game for a long time, if ever, because this wasn't just about one game getting canceled. This is about an entire football gaming market and why nothing ever really changes. Now, earlier today, the cancellation of this game that we have been waiting 6 years for was revealed from Take-Two's CEO when he sat down with Game Files for an interview. They asked him about a bunch of different topics, including their NFL 2K game that they had been working on and we hadn't really heard anything about in some time. He said, "What we hoped would come to fruition creatively did not. Some of the new stuff we tried to do didn't work out creatively." He was a bit open-minded about the possibility of maybe trying to do this again if an opportunity presents itself, he said. Now, my guy Mike Straw did an article on this on Inside Gaming, and he said, "In 2023, I had reported the development had been restarted at least twice since work began. It was a case of multiple direction shifts requiring going back to square one. With the game unable to be a simulation title due to the exclusive deal between the NFL and Electronic Arts, 2K struggled to find an experience that could properly toe the line for players." Then in 2024, Take-Two stopped mentioning the NFL deal during its earnings calls. That led to the belief that it was off the table and no game was going to be released. Under the deal with the NFL signed in 2020, 2K put out NFL 2K Playmakers. The mobile game was a card collecting title that was similar to the My Team modes in the mainline 2K sports games like NBA 2K. The game struggled to find an audience and shut down after just a year in June of 2025. Now, right out the gate, the biggest problem is the non-simulation label, because let's be honest, that does make it a little bit difficult to put out a game that both is going to have the depth that you expect from a 2K game, but also not infringe on EA's license. But the fact that their first release was the NFL 2K Playmakers mobile game, which was a card collecting game that didn't have true actual gameplay, it kind of feels like that was the wrong way to go about it, and it was dead on arrival after that was the first thing they released. Now, the biggest issue with NFL 2K was always right in front of us. They weren't allowed to make a real football game. Because EA still has the exclusive NFL simulation license, 2K had to operate in this weird space. Of course, they could use NFL teams, real logos, players, all the branding, but they couldn't actually compete with Madden as a true 11-on-11 football simulation. It probably would have had to be 7-on-7 or something of that nature. So now you're asking 2K to make a football game, but it can't feel like true football, which I don't think that in itself is the biggest issue, because there are plenty of fun arcade games from the past like Blitz and Street, and we would have loved a return of one of those with a more modern twist, maybe an open world aspect like in the park with NBA 2K. I think they could have did some cool things here, but nonetheless, it's still a tough spot to be in. Do you go full arcade? Do you try something like NFL Street or Blitz? Or do you lean more into team building modes, something like what they did with Playmakers but on console? It's hard to make it feel truly authentic without getting too close to simulation, because then again, you're infringing on EA's license. That's the problem. There's really no clear answer. Although in my opinion, I think what they should have did was just lean heavily into an NFL Street style game, and I think even if it didn't blow people out of the water, it still would have been a solid offering and an attempt to see what the community wanted. And real quick, I did want to mention that we have officially partnered with Civil.gg. If you're looking to win more games in both Madden 26 or College Football 26, you need to check out our website, Civil.gg. We have full offensive and defensive guides that'll actually help you win more games, and weekly new content that's built for players of all game modes at all skill levels. You'll be joining over 2,000 active members. 98% of them say they've won more games since joining. Unlock the tips and tricks you need to win more games by clicking the link below and using code ERIC. And now, back to the video. Now, when it was announced that they were coming back, a lot of people were thinking about NFL 2K and All Pro Football 2K8, but this game was never going to be anything like those games because, again, it can't be a full sim. It could have never fully rivaled what Madden is able to do with the sim license, but it still could have been a really good game that could have still gave them competition and pushed them to do more cool things in their game. Because even an arcade-style NFL 2K game could have been a pretty big deal just because of the fact that it was 2K alone. And if it was successful, if it was a hit, it would have shown that there's still demand for other football games, and maybe it would have reminded the NFL that competition is actually a good thing, even though the NFL typically doesn't like competing brands. Maybe they would have had a change of heart in this situation. But even aside from all that, just having another major player in the space, even if it's arcade, it still forces EA to maybe look at their game a little closer and not get too complacent on what they have, because at any time the NFL is the company that can decide what they want to do. But for one reason or another, NFL 2K just could not come to a decision on what they want to do. The title was restarted a couple of different times, maybe because they were leaning too far simulation, or maybe because they just didn't like the direction they were going. Regardless, we've waited 6 years. All we got was a mobile game that was shut down a year after release, and now the future for any type of NFL 2K involvement looks more bleak than ever, since they had a foot back in the door and they kind of squandered it. So will we ever see any NFL 2K games again? I mean, it's not completely dead. The CEO said if there's opportunity there, they may look at it again, but realistically, I just don't see it happening after how these last 6 years unfolded. And any future NFL 2K game likely would still not be allowed to be simulation, because the NFL just re-upped the exclusive deal with EA when it was reported that EA was actually okay with opening the license up and not going exclusive because they feel that they could have gotten a cheaper deal and no other company was coming along anytime soon to really compete with them. But the NFL, from all reports, kind of forced their hand, saying, if you don't go exclusive, we'll find somebody else that wants to, because the NFL wants that big price tag at the end of the day, and they want one game that's easier for them to control. So seeing as that's how the NFL has operated, and 2K having their foot in the door, not doing anything from the arcade style of things, it doesn't really look like we're going to see any other major NFL games anytime in the near future. And then I've seen a lot of people say, what about another all-pro football game? Why doesn't 2K go back to something like that again? And on paper, sure, it does sound great. No NFL license, you don't have restrictions, just make the best playing football game possible. But the reality is, it's not that simple. The biggest problem is, without the NFL, most people just simply don't care. That's the truth. All Pro Football 2K8 is a perfect example. Great gameplay, tons of personality, and it even had former all-time great NFL players in it. People who played the game loved it. Heck, a lot of people still play that game today, but it didn't sell. Because when casual fans turn on a football game, they want real teams and real players. People want to play with Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Cowboys fans want to play with their Dallas Cowboys. They want the NFL. And from a business standpoint, that's really what matters, especially for a company like 2K. Look, 2K isn't really the company of old, much like most other gaming companies. The people that made 2K5 and 2K8, those people aren't really there anymore. And 2K as a company doesn't operate how they did many years ago. And one thing they surely aren't going to do is spend years developing a football game without the license, without guaranteed sales. They're not going to try to build something from scratch again. That's a huge risk, and in today's market, companies, especially like 2K or EA or any of these other companies, they just don't take risks like that anymore. So unless something changes with the NFL license, or 2K finds a different approach that they really want to see through, it's hard to see 2K jumping back into football at all. And that's really the biggest takeaway here. This wasn't just about one game getting canceled, it's about how hard it is to even exist in this space if you're not Madden. And with all that being said, while you're here, if you are interested in what we know so far about Madden 27, we did get some leaks recently, and you can see that video right here on the screen.